Good evening, fans, and welcome tonight to the Pro Wrestling Reality. Well, for original era New York fans, I think many of us can agree that it's been certainly a long time since we have seen Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, participating actively in that New York based entertainment promotion. And I just really wanted to have a discussion with fans, you know, kind of, discuss his long running now and truly incredible career that he's had in our industry. But, I want to talk about what the character means to today's audience. I'm going to kind of go through what his most current run is looking like, right now, as an influential industry mind. And, I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts on the career, where the career is going at this stage. As I've sort of discussed before, on our investigative series, I do truly believe that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is one of those stars that truly has transcended, WWE, that New York based entertainment promotion. He's gone on to numbers, Hollywood level success, major numbers, Billboard star. And, even recently, getting a role, in a high profile action hero, superhero film, The Black Adam, and I think that really equates success, to a guy like Johnson. So here, in the modern era, recently, Johnson has come back to New York. And I truly believe this time, it's so much more than, Dwayne coming out and, saying hello WWE Universe and, essentially sort of more of a goodwill ambassador, for the company. This time, Johnson is coming in and he's really participating. He's really, I think, showing more of that entertainment WWE based style on television now than he's done, in the past 10, 15 years. Even if you look back to that whole Cena Rock program, it has a lot of people very surprised. It's been a very unpredictable run. He's doing things with Joe, major main event program level storylines with Joe and, the rest of that bloodline stable. He's interacting with new, generation stars like the Cody Rhodes, setting something up, here potentially for a WrestleMania encounter. So I think he's doing quite well for himself right now. And he's doing something different, and we're gonna kind of talk about it. Now, if you go back, about a year or so ago, when Johnson started coming into the picture again, I had some inside sources that sort of gave me the scoop, of what they were planning for WrestleMania at one point with Johnson. And it really seemed that he was going to be so much more of a celebrated goodwill ambassador character. But he's going heel. He's doing heel currently on New York television. And I think that really freshens the character up, at this stage of his career. I wanted to ask, and explore the idea of, is Dwayne The Rock Johnson as a WWE character performer still relevant? I do feel when you are a legend of this industry, you kind of have to deal with that generational shift. That you're going to come out onto that stage, and there's going to be a portion of the younger audience who are looking to their fathers now, saying, mommy or daddy, who's this guy? And the parent's going to have to explain to the younger fan now, that's who your father grew up watching. And Dwayne is very much in that position now. And when you gauge his reactions when he comes out, I tried to look back at some of the peaks of his career and gauge the reactions, the levels of reactions in the arenas. And although I think Johnson still is getting a big reaction in this modern era, I don't think it truly compares to when he was at his absolute peak, 99, 2000. But, many have said, the industry is just not as hot as it once was. But him doing heel now is so much different than what was reported to me that the company was planning. Now, I heard there were conversations, that Joe and Dwayne were really setting something up. And it was a tag team concept, I think, from what I believe and what I was told. Johnson was really pushing to celebrate that legacy, that Fatu, Johnson, Anoka legacy. And what he was pitching was for himself and the daughter, Ava, to tag against Joe, known as Roman Reigns, and Tamina Snuka. Because my source told me that Johnson was repeatedly saying in this meeting, discussing this WrestleMania match, that he wanted to do something that was a celebration. And when it came to the idea of Tamina Snuka now being in the showcase match, teaming with Joe, he was saying, it's a shame what happened to the father. That poor girl, I pray for her every day, but, that name that she comes from is one of the reasons why we're talking about WrestleMania today. And he was really pushing for that concept. Now, this is just what I've heard. He was really pushing for that concept to bring Jimmy Superfly Snuka back into the conversation again. And instead, we're looking, a year or two later, and we're getting something completely different. Completely different. Since aligning himself on television with that bloodline faction, yes, Dwayne The Rock Johnson has brought back that initial, major back in its day heel character that he would once portray. He's been insulting the audience. He's been bringing the trailer park trash line back to describe fans. And I gotta say, I never truly felt that Johnson would, portray that type of character again. You gotta remember, this is like a magazine cover, social media highlighted major name in Hollywood right now as well. And I always truly felt that, Johnson doesn't need WWE. I always felt that the reality was that they needed him. But to see Johnson really give so much passion, trying something different, being involved, on the weekly programs, I think I gotta give him his credit for that. And I think it's great to see. But, that's where it comes into question, is Johnson right now still relevant, and you know what? I think that he is. He's portraying, something we haven't seen him do in almost a decade. He's getting in there, with the young dudes, with Reigns, with Rollins, with Rhodes. And I believe, he's really ready to do something out there. And as an original era fan, I've never been a major big Dwayne The Rock Johnson fan, but with what he's been doing recently, I really got to give him the credit. And we're definitely looking forward to WrestleMania season here at Pro Wrestling Reality.